Mark chapter 4, verses 26 to 34. Jesus said to his disciples, "The kingdom of God is as if someone would scatter seed on the ground and would sleep and rise night and day, and the seed would sprout and grow. He does not know how. The earth produces of itself first the stalk, then the head, then the full grain in the head. But when the grain is ripe, at once he goes in with his sickle, because the harvest has come." He also said, "With what can we compare the kingdom of God, or what parable will we use for it? It is like a mustard seed, which when sown upon the ground is the smallest of all the seeds on earth. Yet when it is sown, it grows up and becomes the greatest of all shrubs, and puts forth large branches, so that the birds of the air can make nests in its shade." With many such parables he spoke the word to them, as they were able to hear it. He did not speak to them except in parables, but he explained everything in private to his disciples.
It can be difficult to share our faith. What words do we use to describe God, or our idea of the kingdom of heaven, or the good news that Jesus shared? It turns out that Jesus pretty much had exactly the same problem. How could he tell the people of his day about the kingdom of heaven? The 19th and 20th century philosopher Wittgenstein was well aware of the problem of language. He said that the limits of language are the limits of our world, and whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must remain silent. In other words, we can't really talk about things if we don't have the adequate language to describe it. He went on to suggest that words can become more meaningful if they can be rooted in images and pictures of this life and this world. Maybe that's what Jesus was doing when he described the kingdom of heaven in parables. The kingdom of God as a seed is an interesting idea. Seeds are buried underground, and even though you might know they're there, you'd be forgiven for thinking that perhaps nothing is happening. Eventually, however, the seed does begin to grow, and finally you see it in all its glory and all its strength. I rather like the idea of the kingdom of heaven as a mustard tree or bush, because let's face it, at some point in our lives we could all do with the protection of God's kingdom in our life. So how might we explain God's kingdom in the world? Maybe we don't need words at all. Maybe by our love and care for people, they will see something of God's love for them. And by the way we live in the world, they'll see something of God's kingdom. Maybe our actions will speak more loudly than any of our words ever could.